9 is number of things you need to learn about light to improve your photos on your smartphone. Let's get started. Welcome here to my channel. I'm Simone Bortolotti, and the photography topic of today's video is light, which is probably the most fundamental and important side to get nice photos. I believe that there's an infinity of tips about light in photography, but I've decided to select only 9 different points about it, starting from the number 0, the base of everything, which is that the smartphone is extremely simple on the camera side. In fact, as I said in my previous video, there are some really few features and tools to adjust the exposure and all the settings on a smartphone, rather than, for example, a normal camera which is full of things to adjust and to set your photos perfectly. So the first tip we're going to talk about is to focus on the right side that you want on your photo, because the smartphone is going to make an auto exposure of the point that you're going to click on your screen of your smartphone. This is going to save you lots of time, just because the smartphone is going to do part of the work, and so your photo in most of the cases will be already rightly exposed. If this auto exposure process by the smartphones isn't great, there's a little slider near the focus point from which you can decide and set the exposure of your photo, but there's another option from iPhone from which you can set directly an exposure for every photo you're gonna make in the following minutes directly from the settings of the camera. And this is perfect, for example, if you know that there's lots of light and so you just want to low light a bit the exposure in your photos. The third tip is about the flash. So forget about the flash on your smartphone. I'll tell you why. So the main reason why you should avoid using the flash is because the flashlight is an extremely little and tiny light source, and in the night it's going to do an overexposure of the subjects near to the source light, and instead on the other end it's not going to make a huge difference for the subjects which are not near to your smartphone's camera. And so what can you do to avoid using your flash? It's really simple in my opinion. You just need to activate the night mode and use the natural and artificial light sources which are already around you. In your photos, the subject needs to be well exposed, just because, you know, when you see a photo, the subject is the thing that's gonna catch your attention. Lots of people usually don't think about this, but thinking and focusing on the subject is extremely important. You can have all your background falling into the darkness, but your subject needs to be well exposed, and so you need to think about it while shooting. Usually the best time of the day to shoot your photos is at the sunrise or at the sunset. During the day you have some more high contrast, but instead during the sunset, for example, you have in general 2 main better things. First of all, you have some minor contrast, and so this helps to get out a better photo, and even you have some better colors, which in my opinion in most of the cases in photos gives you a more special and cinematic look to your photos. Now let's move to the next tip, which is about the HDR in photos. So don't use the HDR while taking your photos. In my opinion, the HDR makes the photos looking too much surreal, but instead you can try taking your photos normally, and after you learn a bit of photo editing, and we'll talk about photo editing in the next videos, and after you learn photo editing, you can just adjust all the things, for example, all the shadows, all the lights in your photos, and this in my opinion is way better than using the HDR, which in my opinion is just terrible on smartphones. The tip number 7 is to avoid all the high light contrast while taking photos, because the smartphone's camera can't face all those particular sceneries. This happens especially during the day, in which the suns create lots of highlights, for example on the whites, and lots of deep blacks in the shadows, and so it's better if you try to avoid these particular sceneries and instead you can try to move around to find a better spot. The next tip is to stay steady while shooting. This will help you get some better photos. When you want to take a photo, your smartphone's camera needs some time to let the light come into your sensor to make the photo. And so if during this little time you move around while taking your photos, your final picture will not be extremely detailed and sharp, and so there will be some blur into it. Last but not least, the final tip is to avoid zooming. This in general makes your photos more flat. So when you zoom in into your photos, you are doing a crop of the full resolution of your photo, and even you're gonna lose contrast, colors, and the photo will get more grainy. And during the night you are going to see even some digital noise, which is not so great. So in general, try to avoid zooming, and if you can, try to get closer to your subject, which is definitely better than just zooming in into your photos. So we're now at the end of this second video about smartphone photography, and lots of more are coming in the next video, so subscribe if you don't want to miss them. And yeah, so just leave a like if you enjoyed this video, and that's all for this one. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye!